we all sound the same. We're all saying the same things.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of my job is that we all kind of have the same messaging. We're all copying each other.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, I have with me Rob Scott, who is the Director of Enterprise Sales at Folloze, where he leads efforts to empower B2B marketing teams with personalized digital experiences that drive revenue. With a strong background in sales and marketing, Rob brings a wealth of experience from previous roles at companies like Workday and Eloqua, where he was instrumental in driving strategic account growth, which is why we're excited to have him on the show today. Rob, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Devin. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm particularly excited about kind of diving into some of the work that you were doing with Eloqua and how Oracle got involved and some of the stuff that we were talking about just before we jumped on here. Before
Yep.
we get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, though, Rob, I'd love to get maybe just a couple of minutes from you on your background. Who you are, where you came from, and how you landed as the Director of Enterprise Sales at Folloze.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I mean, as you can see from the gray hair, I've been doing this for a long time, and I had a job at Fifth Third Bank in Cincinnati right out of college. But from there, launched into my sales career with my first job at ADP and a lot of other jobs along the way. But I am a career seller and love it. It's a great profession that I think gets a little bit ridiculed, but if you're good at it and do the right things when you're working with your customers and prospects, it can be very fruitful and a lot of fun. So I've had a lot of jobs, but in the recent past, a couple of my jobs are very much marketing focused. You mentioned Eloqua. In between, I went to Workday for 4 years. Great experience there. Awesome company. But missed the MarTech world and had an opportunity to join Folloze when Folloze was very, very young and just getting started. So it's been a pretty wild ride. A lot of ups and downs, but I've been here 7 years now. Just hit my 7-year anniversary, and we're continuing to, I think, change people's perception of what B2B marketing should be and how to approach it differently than the way many have been approaching it for all these years in the past. And so that's been a lot of fun. It's a little bit of teaching, it's a little bit of selling. It's definitely, we're breaking some new ground with some of the things that not just Folloze is doing. There's a lot of companies in our space that are also trying to change the mindset of B2B marketers. And it's not easy, particularly when you're selling into large accounts that, have, very set in their ways, I guess is the way to say it. But we're trying very hard, and I think having some success in getting people to think differently. So
I would love to talk about that, Rob. The B2C is one thing, and that's kind of like the common thing that everybody kind of has a good understanding of. When a business wants to sell things to a customer, it's pretty clear that pathway, what that looks like. Business to business is different in that you are working from one business to another business, sharing resources to make both businesses thrive. But when you get into the space of enterprise, that's a completely different beast. It's a bigger ship. There's a lot more moving parts. I wonder how some of that early experience that you had working with Workday and Eloqua, how that influenced your approach to the way you are doing marketing and sales and business development as it relates to enterprise.
yep, it is. It is very different, and Folloze also sells down market to medium enterprise and SMB. But for what I'm doing at Folloze, it is definitely a different mindset. You have to be patient. You have to spend time building relationships and trying to find the people that actually really care about making something happen inside that large organization. Because you need somebody internally or some people internally that want to make change, because it's not easy for them inside that large enterprise. it's much harder to get things done in a large company. And if you don't have somebody on the inside that understands what it's going to take and is willing to fight that battle for you, then you're never going to make a sale in a large enterprise company. So patience and finding those people, those are probably the two big keys to being successful in the enterprise segment. And then obviously there's a lot of things that you don't run into with smaller companies when you sell to smaller companies. Much more stringent infosec procurement process. Lots of people involved in the decision. That's where platforms like Folloze can really be helpful to, um, you know, in a non-invasive way, find those people, deliver content and information to them that they can read on their own and learn more about what you're selling, so that when the time comes to actually reach out to them, try to get a meeting scheduled, they already have some understanding of what it is you do and what the benefits are that you bring to that company. So, that's a big part of this is understanding who's in the big company that is going to help you eventually, or you're going to need their support, and nurturing them some way or another. And that's the beauty of all these great tools that we have, not just Folloze. There are ways to do that in an automated fashion, and not necessarily me having to do all that.
Okay, I love that you added in the automation part because that's one thing that I want to pick your brain on. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, the one thing that you pointed at very early in this conversation was that you're trying to do things differently. So I know from my own experience in the whole idea of building relationships, there's this ickiness that comes along with me reaching out to somebody full well knowing that all I'm trying to do is get to know that person so that they'll allow me to go to the next stage in that, business, as a gatekeeper, you're just trying to get past people or through people or around people. And so some part of it feels a little bit disingenuous, while the other side of it, and I get this, right? Sales and psychology is a really big thing for me. So the on the other side of it is like, well, genuinely, I know I can help you, and you don't know how I can help you unless I get the opportunity to share that with you. And I almost feel like there's a duty and a responsibility for me to do that. And so there's a balance, right, between this idea of, okay, I'm here because I really am trying to sell you something that I think can help you, but also I can't do that without being your friend and having your trust and getting you to like me. So how do you strike that balance in the work that you do, Rob?
I think part of it is just being genuine, and not sounding too salesy when you're doing the reach out, trying to find something, maybe in their LinkedIn profile, maybe there's a mutual connection that you see. Maybe it's a company that they worked for prior to the one that they're working for now, and you have some familiarity with that. Find something that makes it so that you're finding some common thread that actually will say, "Oh, that's kind of cool," and kind of break down that wall a little bit. And don't be afraid to let people know that you are trying to sell them something that you think will help them. Like that's the other thing, right? Don't dance around it. But again, it's all in your approach and how you deliver it, and trying to strike that balance between being friendly and also making sure you're getting your point across, that you're trying to learn more about their situation and see if there's a good fit for what Folloze can do. So, some people it's very natural for them. I think that's me. Some people it's a lot harder, but that is the key. I think is to try to strike that balance of being friendly and finding some common thread, and also making sure they understand that you are interested in talking to them about what you have to sell.
As you're talking, I guess that means even if there is no common thread, just reaching out to somebody being like, listen, I did my best to try and find something on your
Yeah,
LinkedIn
you got to
profile
know
and I
when to say,
couldn't.
all right, this isn't going to
Yeah.
work, right?
What?
That's the other thing. There's a lot of fish in the sea. I mean, obviously, when you're selling into large enterprise accounts, there aren't as many fish, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of people in those accounts, right? So
Right.
it's just a different mindset there, as far as, you might not get any traction with that one person, but there's a lot of other people that probably can have some influence in that large account. And you just keep trying to find that person that you get that connection with, that you can build that relationship with. And it's it's hard work, but it's also kind of fun. It's a little bit of a game, right? So it's it's just what we have to do.
A lot of it is perspective, right? And I love that at the forefront of all of that, you remind me of a book that I read a dozen times because it was just that good. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Oh yeah, great book. Yep.
Yeah, expert hostage negotiator for the FBI, 20 or 30 years or whatever it is. And one of the things that he points at right out of the gate, especially when you're a salesperson or there's a difficult conversation to have, is to call out the ugly thing right away. Listen, I'm definitely here to sell you something, but if you'd give me an opportunity, I'd love to get to know you and see if this is actually a good thing that we could both have, or if it's not. But I can't do that without, being honest. It's in my nature to be honest. So like, I love that calling it out is a part of that framework that you follow to create part of that kind of sales experience. Can you walk me through what that looks like in the enterprise world? Like, what does a typical customer experience look like, kind of coming from that point of discovery to like, actually we're having a conversation about striking a deal?
Well, it takes a long time. So, particularly if it's an account that you've just started going after or started, let's say it's an account that's in your ICP. You see that their tech stack is perfectly in line with where your solution would fit, and so I can tell you that I have customers and some accounts that I'm filing in contract with that I've been talking to for as long as I've been at Folloze. So it's not that's the thing. When I say patience, as I said up front, like you've got to have patience. And I have the luxury of having been in the same place for 7 years. Some people might call that crazy, but is someone who's selling into large enterprise accounts, it is going to give you that ability to continue to nurture these relationships. Timing is everything in these big accounts. The economy's going up and down. There's lots of different priorities. And if they understand what you sell and they like you as a person, then when they finally see an opportunity, you're going to be at the top of their mind. And that's when you're really going to start getting into the sales process. And when you finally get to that point, it can go pretty quickly. There's still a lot to do from a contractual, infosec, privacy, all that kind of stuff. It takes time to get through all of that. But once you get into that process, they're bought in. They're starting to dedicate resources to buying what you have to sell because they're bringing in teams that go beyond where they are. And once you get to that point, it's pretty likely that you're finally going to close a deal and make them a customer. So, but that upfront time, that dance, that period of trying to find when is the right time, that can take a long time. So,
Yeah, especially considering just how many people need to be involved in the decision making process at that level, right? There's just so many little cogs and moving parts. So I wonder, because we're in a day and age now where like the whole marketing engine is kind of distilled down to like data driven decision making, very scientific approach to the way that you measure XYZ. You're doing your best to have the information you need to make good decisions, but in a space where it's so nuanced, having these difficult conversations with all of these different people to try to curate, some sort of solution that would fit them. How do you measure what is or is not successful along that way so that you can do that more predictably? Or have you just tossed that whole idea out the window and you're just flying into it knowing that there's actually no real science to it? This is just humans being humans. Like what's your angle on that?
no, that's a great question, actually. And I would say that the science is better than it's ever been, and it's still super important. I take over when I see that suddenly there's a spike in engagement. There's people coming to our website. There's people visiting Folloze boards that I may have shared over the course of time. And all of a sudden, we're starting to see a spike. I'm also relying on a platform that you're probably familiar with, 6sense, right? They're sharing with us, where are they in the buyer's journey, and if they finally are getting to decision, to that later stage that 6sense is tracking, that's another sign that that account might finally really be ready to do something. And then that's when the team that's working with that account, that's when we start really doubling down on reaching out to the people that we think are going to be part of that buying process, and see if what we're seeing in the numbers, in the science, is real. Because, particularly with large enterprise, deals don't get done by themselves. It's not like you can just go in and say, I want to buy Folloze. It does require quite a lot of hand-holding in the procurement process, and making sure that we are a good fit and all that good stuff. But to see a spike in what we're seeing with the engagement, or with the intent, those things are the signal that we really need to double down. So
You know, it's interesting because as you were talking, you were reminding me of something, and this seems like it's going to be a little bit off track, but I promise I'm going to bring it back here. He's a trader, like a forex trader, just trading online and that sort of thing. And in his early days, he had a problem because the charts that he was looking at were like 1 minute to 5 minute intervals.
yep,
So
exactly.
there's a lot of action, there's a lot of things moving around, and you really do see things there. But he kept failing. No matter what strategy he deployed, there was just failure after failure after failure, draining his bank account, couldn't figure out what was going on until a mentor of his gave him the advice to zoom out.
Yeah.
And when he zoomed out, he was able to see larger trends over longer periods of time because he had a much wider data set. And so here's me bringing it right back. It sounds like to me, when we talk about like B2C, we can go, okay, I put out an advertisement, it cost me $5 to get that customer. I make $20 on the thing that I sold, and I got a very clear path. It happens in 24 to 48 hours after I deploy the ad. Versus actually we're talking about this for, 2 years with this company, with this partner, and we're trying to, implement this, and then technology shift. And so what we're really looking at is just a wider data set. Is that
Uh,
accurate, or am I
it,
off the mark there?
no, it is accurate. I think the other important element of this is to have a marketing team behind you,
Hmm.
and business development team, ADR, et cetera, that are nurturing these accounts with information about what we do, how we do it better, how we might fit with what their goals and objectives are. Um, because if you're not staying in front of them when they're not thinking about doing a project, then again, you're probably not going to have that. You know, I can only do so much on my own. I've got a lot of accounts and I got a lot of things going on,
Right, right.
and it's very important that we have that air cover going on behind us.
So, what's your perspective then on keeping that engine inside internal as a part of the company versus partnering with a third party who maybe specializes in something like that? Are you open to that kind of thing? Do you think that's a good idea, or are you more of the kind of person who prefers to keep everything kind of in-house?
I think it depends. We've tried outsourcing some things.
Hmm.
And I've had experience with that in other companies that I've worked for. What I'm really thinking about is like the ADR function, for example, business development, somebody that's going after accounts and trying to book meetings for you. I'll tell you, it really depends on how complex it is, what you sell. If it's really simple and easy for them to understand, because they do need to go banter back and forth when they got somebody that might be close to thinking about booking a meeting. If it's super simple and easy, then that's probably going to work pretty well. But if it's a much more complex and you really need to understand all the nuances, and that's follows that the outsourced ADR is probably not going to work. I think marketing programs outsourced that can work if you have a good trusted agency relationship that you are working with. But again, I hate to say it depends, but I think it does depend. So,
Well, and that's important too, right? It sometimes it's not an either or, and if you can, be flexible enough to identify when the scenario fits and when it doesn't, then maybe that makes you more nimble in your efforts, right? You're able to be flexible, so when you need to deploy something quickly, you can, and when you need to take your time, you're able to do that as well, which I think is a great strategy when it comes to acquiring customers, is to be flexible because at the end of the day, it's a human thing, right?
yes, and try new things. That's that, and that's a lot harder for large enterprises to do. But with smaller companies like ours, for example, I mean, we're always trying new things, and we're trying to find something, and so that I think is also very important, is to be flexible. And if something's not working, you need to just say, hey, pull the ripcord. This is not working. We either need to tweak it, or we just need to abandon it altogether. Of course, you should balance that with giving something a little bit of time to see. It depends on what you're doing, but yeah, this is a tricky business. That's
Right.
for sure. And people are fickle, right? Like things change with the people that you're going after, and so there's just so many variables that again makes it kind of fun, but it also makes it hard. So,
Right. The Alex Hermosi, the gym guy, the way he put it is you could try something 99 times and then give up on the 99th time. And if if you would have just done it one more time, that 100th time was the time that you got the success. And so you can't measure it on a very limited data set. You have to measure it across a larger amount of information before you make a decision that's actually an informed decision. And so the more information you get, the better, and the more armed you are to do these things. But then
yeah,
we,
and it
then
might
we,
just be a tiny little tweak that you need to make, and that
right, like a
also,
headline or a button
yeah,
or
I
a picture.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
go.
When it comes to so the advent now of AI, and I know that it's been around for a while, large language models and the predictive intelligence and that sort of thing. So we are now entering a new space where the general public has access to some of these tools, and so they're evolving a little bit quicker. Um, what's your stance on the role of automations and AI and technology like that in some of these, business processes like sales and marketing? I know that you've been around long enough to kind of see both sides of the spectrum, so I'm really
Yeah,
curious to for you to kind of unpack that for us.
yeah. I think it can be very helpful. But you can't be solely reliant thinking, there's a lot of lazy people out there who just think, oh, great, I can have AI write my email, or I can have AI tell me who I should be going after as an account, for example. You need to take what you're given, and then you need to take a little time to vet it and maybe tweak it. It can't be AI by itself. It needs to be AI with some human interaction at the end before you do anything with it, right? So, but it does have the ability to save people a lot of time, right? You can get 50% of what you used to do manually done with the AI, maybe 75, maybe 90, right? And then just spend a little time at the end to make sure it's what you need, or you agree with the data, or whatever it might be, and then go from there. So we should never become solely reliant. That's my point there. So
Yeah, that's I'm hearing a lot of that. The people that are willing and able or capable of adopting the technology, leveraging it, and using it are the ones that are going to be successful in the long run because they're the ones who are going to be able to figure out how to actually implement it. But it's not that it's going to take over our role. There is some level of human intervention that's still necessary, right?
yes, exactly. And you really, I think people are uncomfortable with it. Like
Mm.
especially large enterprise companies, they have a lot of rules, and really, what, like, we have AI in our product, and a lot of
Mhm.
companies say, don't turn it on. We don't even want to know that it's there. Just turn it off, and we have the ability to do that. Um, I think there's legal implications. There's a lot of
Mm.
things that people are afraid of. And I guess my message there is, don't be afraid, but take the time to really understand what is involved, what you'd be getting,
Mm.
because there are a lot of benefits to it. That's for sure. But I think a lot of people are just saying, I'm not even going to deal with it because I'm just afraid of, crossing the chasm with AI. So it's an interesting time right now because some people are haters, some people are lovers, some people are looking at it as the easy way. Some people are seeing it as I think the people that really work closely with it and take the time to understand what they're getting and then do something beyond what is given to them. That's where you're going to see the most success. So
Yeah, it's a yield sign, right?
right, exactly.
Go
Yeah. Go with
proceed with
caution,
caution.
but
Yeah.
go, right?
Yeah.
Definitely go. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, Rob, we're kind of coming to the end of our time together here.
Yeah.
To wrap things up, I'd love to just kind of peer into the future a little bit. What sorts of trends are you noticing that are promising? What types of new technologies are out there that you're excited about? Like, what's on the horizon for the work that you're doing with Folloze and in your own work?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time to be in sales and marketing. That's for sure. Because I think there are a lot of expectations about what all these tools can do.
Mm.
But I think it's a little overwhelming as well for everybody. So, this is a great time for people like you. I think people really need help to kind of figure out what is the landscape, what is possible. And that's where I really have a lot of fun is just trying to help people understand not just what is Folloze and how that can help, but how it fits into the broader ecosystem. I mean, I'm seeing some customers do some really cool things with the new technology. Automation is definitely one of those things that we're seeing people leverage. We've just started leveraging it here at Folloze, where we use 6sense and Outreach and Folloze all together, and now we're taking data from 6sense and triggering automated sequences out of Outreach that have links to Folloze boards. And this has really been very impactful. We've just started doing it in the last 6 months, and we're seeing a big spike in meetings booked and engagement on Folloze boards. People just wanting to learn because we're hitting the right people at the right time with information that's interesting to them. And sales isn't involved at all. We're just monitoring and looking to see what's happening and where the engagement is, and then when it looks like it's the right time to go and see if we can talk to them seriously about what Folloze has to sell, we do that. So, these kinds of things have never been around until just recently. And the companies that take advantage of some of these new technologies and figure out how it's going to work for them, I think there's a lot of goodness that's going to come out of it for sure. So,
Yeah, a ton of potential. All of the new gizmos and gadgets and things that are going to be at our disposal. It's exciting, exciting time to be alive.
yeah, I have one customer. This is kind of crazy. So they actually are using a technology that can actually create a video from the seller, but the seller never created it, right? So
Oh,
it's
wow.
like taking inputs, and then that video would show up on a Folloze board as the leading item for, hey, check this site out that I created for you. So lots of automation. It's not even really the seller. It's obviously the seller's image and talks like, some of these things that people can do with these new technologies, and some companies are really getting excited about how to take advantage of it. And it's pretty cool. It's interesting times and exciting times, I think. But also a little scary. I think it's all of those things at once. Yeah.
Yes, I'll admit I had my moment where I was like, "Uh-oh, Skynet, anybody?"
Yeah, right. See, exactly. I don't know if you saw the Reid Hoffman thing that he did. He created a whole like 45 minutes like a TED Talk thing. And it wasn't him. It was just him putting inputs into, I don't know if it was Chat GPT or something else, but and he did like a side by side of him doing it himself and this output from AI, and you could not tell the difference. I mean, his mannerisms, all of it was just crazy. So
Okay, I got to look
It,
into
it
that.
yeah, yeah. Follow Reid Hoffman if you're not, because he's definitely all about new tech and using AI and things like that. And he does a nice weekly or biweekly update on some of the things that he's doing. So
I think you've suggested a new guest idea. We're gonna try to reach out to him. See
yeah,
if we
I bet
can't
he'd
get
be
his
willing.
opinion.
I think this is the kind of thing that he's doing now that he's left LinkedIn and has lots of time to just kind of have fun with new tech, right? So
Yeah, that's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Rob, in closing, if I could get you to maybe to share a piece of advice to somebody who's exploring some of this stuff in maybe a similar role as you, what kind of advice would you offer a person like that?
So someone buying or somebody selling?
Either or. If somebody's kind of in this space working with this kind of technology, there's obviously, a word to the wise. So I'd love to see what you could offer
Yeah. So
them.
for the buyers, I would just be careful because there's a lot of noise. We all sound the same. We're all saying the same things.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of my job is that we all kind of have the same messaging. We're all copying each other, and it's you've got to take the time as a buyer to really dig into what it is that you need, as well as what it is that's available on the market to meet that need. Um, and from a selling perspective, I think it's really important to be genuine, really understand their space, understand what's going on, and help people navigate this challenging landscape because it is challenging, and buyers need and want help in a lot of situations. I mean, you'll run into some buyers who just think they know it all and they know what they need and gonna buy it, but more often than not, people are looking for people that can help them navigate the landscape and understand some of the things that they may not be able to figure out on their own. So
Very sound advice. If somebody
yeah,
wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain or perhaps work with you, Rob, what's the best way for them to do that?
yeah, pretty simple. Rob@folloze.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find me there. So either way would be great. Yeah.
Beautiful. We'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. And if you're looking to get in touch with me and my team for your marketing stuff, feel free to visit nextgengrowth.com to find out what we can do for you. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you in the next.